Hello, hello! It's Angie. I'm an interpreter for California State Parks, and today we are on a live kayak tour of Trinidad Bay. It's a little windy, so hang in there with me. I'm joined by some very special human beings. Right here, I have my friend Michelle. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Michelle. It's a little windy, so I hope you can hear me, but I work for the Trinidad Coastal Land Trust here in Trinidad, and I also have worked as a kayak guide in Trinidad and other places in California, and really excited to honor all of you today and share a little bit about what we know up here.
Yay! And I'm going to flip the camera. We have Brance.
Hey everyone, my name is Brance. I'm also an outdoor guide here in Trinidad Bay, doing kayak tours and enjoying it out here, so hope you guys enjoy the tour.
Woohoo! So Brance is with Kayak Zax, which is a local kayak tour company. And today we're out on Trinidad Bay. If you're familiar with Trinidad, you'll probably recognize Trinidad Head, which is right behind me. And if I pan more that way, you'll see the Trinidad Harbor, which is managed by the Trinidad Rancheria. On the other side of, let me flip around again, kind of this area right here, we have Trinidad State Beach. So we have a state beach, we have local tribal partnerships, we have our Trinidad Coastal Land Trust, our nonprofit partners, lots of layers of people that are enthusiastic about the outdoors and protecting places for people to enjoy and allowing people to have access to them. So that's what we're doing today, and I wanted to introduce you to probably one of my very favorite marine species, which is a type of kelp or algae. And I'm going to flip the camera around so you can see what it is. And Michelle and I are going to tell you a bit about it. I'm using this piece of kelp right here to help me stay in place. But you can see I have some long fronds of kelp. And this species of kelp that you can probably see a lot of in the water, and also this one that's on my boat, is called bull kelp. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. First, let's talk about the part that's underwater. So there's a really important part of this kelp species that is beneath the surface that you can't see right now, but that is called the holdfast. And I always say that the holdfast of the kelp is sort of like the roots of a tree. So if you can think of like the roots of a redwood tree. Oh, Michelle found something cool.
Just a little crab on here.
Oh, cool.
Here, I actually see it.
Let's see if I can get closer. We'll come back to the holdfasts after.
Oh, it's crawling down. Oh, there it goes. Onto the blades.
Well, there was a little crab. Not anymore. But our holdfasts are basically down on the bottom of the ocean right here. Right here, it's probably about maybe 20 feet deep. I've been scuba diving around this area a little bit, and I've got to see some of the amazing life that lives below the surface. But our holdfast is basically holding on like a hand, almost like on a rock, holding on to a hard surface on the bottom of the ocean. And the rest of the kelp is basically reaching up as close to the surface as it can go, because these life forms require sunlight to survive. So they photosynthesize just like our green plants on land. And one adaptation or thing that they have that's really special that helps them reach towards the sun, let me give you a good view. You'll notice that at the top here, there's sort of like a bulb, like a circle. And this bulb is called the pneumaticist, and it's actually filled with gas. And of course, having gas inside of there helps this portion float towards the surface and brings all of these photosynthesizing blades up towards the sunlight. And that's what allows them to create their kelpy structures, and they provide a lot of food and habitat for the other animals that live in Trinidad Bay. So Michelle has sort of a fun fact about bull kelp. Do you want to share?
Sure. So this is pretty pretty wild, but so as Angie was saying, the bull kelp is full of gases that help it float. And actually a lot of different seaweeds have little bladders that are filled with air that helps them reach to the surface of the ocean so they can photosynthesize, like she was saying. But these bull kelps, their bulbs are composed of different gases that are pretty similar to the atmosphere, but they also have carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide, as we know, is poisonous. A lot of us have sensors in our homes that go off when there's too much of it, and it can be harmful. And actually these bull kelps contain just enough carbon monoxide to kill a chicken. So if you can imagine a chicken sucking the gas through a little straw in the bull kelp.
Which would probably never happen naturally, but
Probably never happen.
fun fact.
Yeah, just a little fun fact.
And somebody mentioned, Kate mentioned they're like giant whips, and thank you for reminding me that. They're called bull kelp because they look a lot like bull whips. So I know I grew up on the California coast, and I would often find strands of bull kelp on the beaches, and they always looked like really ideal things to use as jump ropes. So I would always jump rope on the beach with the strands of bull kelp. And so that's a little bit about our kelp. And of course, as you can see from the surface, we have a lot of strands of bull kelp here. And of course, a lot of you are following our North Coast Redwoods page because you love the old growth redwood forests in Northern California. And I always say that the bull kelp and other kelp species like giant kelp off the coast of California, that is one of the key habitats in our marine protected areas, are sort of like the old growth redwood forests of the sea, because they actually form underwater forests. And as a diver and an ocean lover myself, my favorite thing to do is swim through an underwater forest. So if you've been on a hike in the redwood forest and you're like, wow, how cool would it be to fly through the canopy, you can actually do that if you dive in a kelp forest. So one of my very favorite things. Let's see. Oh, Jennifer Sanders, great conversation starter. Jennifer asked, is bull kelp in danger of disappearing? And sorry guys, it's a little windy today, but we are doing our best. Yeah, so bull kelp and the other kelp species, also giant kelp in California, that creates these underwater forests is actually declining. So the amount of kelp that we have off the coast of California has decreased pretty consistently over the last several years. And so our kelp forests are starting to be more and more rare. And that's for a variety of different reasons, and one of which is related to urchins. So I'm sure you can all maybe picture a sea urchin in your mind. And those little creatures with all those spiny spikes are voracious vegetarians. Do they eat non-plant things too?
I think that they will, yeah, but definitely
Mostly vegetarians. Maybe we could call them flexitarians, but they like to eat a lot of kelp, and there is like a pool of urchins on the North Coast due to a variety of factors like warmer ocean conditions, and their predator, the sea star, is also has recently suffered from sea star wasting disease, which is a disease that has impacted their populations. So basically less predators, ideal kind of environmental conditions have caused the urchin populations to boom, which has caused a reduction in kelp. And we just found some really cool stuff.
Did you talk about what has been causing the urchin population to boom?
A little bit, but feel free to add anything.
Yeah, so a really major component of that story is sea otters. And sea otters up here on the North Coast are functionally extinct. There's otters elsewhere in California and on the West Coast, but the sea otter is probably the only thing that eats urchins because they have all those spines. Nothing else can really eat them, but the sea otters have learned how to scrape those little spines off. And so we do have that decline in kelp, like Angie was saying, because of our decline in sea otters. We also have a really cool thing that I want to show you. I don't know if you can see it behind me.
Here, you go forward and I'll follow you. If you look in this crack, you can see some sea stars there too.
We have this really, really cool mollusk here called a gumbo chitin, the biggest chitin in the world. So
Cool. Here, I always say these kind of look like footballs underwater. They're like the footballs of the sea. If you were ever to run into them, you'd probably see this side of the animal, which kind of looks like a leathery.
yeah, it's got this like, ooh, put it in the sun. So actually, I think it's cool to look at the bottom too. So you can kind of imagine that the bottom of this almost looks like a slug or a snail, and that's because it's closely related. So it's a mollusk or a gastropod, and it's rolling up now to conserve moisture. So I will put it back on the rock in a second. But yeah, these giant things are they move around on the rocks like snails or slugs would, and scrape off little bits of algae and things that have grown on the rocks. There's a lot of cool stuff showing up on the rocks that Angie should.
Yeah. Okay. So you can see in this little crevice, if you're not familiar really with like the tide pool area or this sort of intertidal zone, you'll know that it's a pretty rough place to live because you have to basically be able to survive above water, out of the water, sometimes in direct sun, and also underneath the water. So that's a lot of different skills you have to have. So we have things like barnacles, we have limpets, we have sea stars, we have our gumbo chitons. We're getting pushed by the wind, so hang on a second. We also have this kind of kelp, this algae right here, which is called feather boa kelp. It's aptly named. It kind of looks like the feather boas that you might get at like the party store. Let's see. We are on the other side of this rock now, and you can see up on the surface of the rock, or on the top of the rock, we have some leather ferns.
Do you see this leather star down here? There's this red right at the end of my boat, this little red star.
Okay, let me get a little closer. Hang in there, everyone. Christy Michelson says, I see Brants. All right, we have a leather star there, and we also have some ochre stars, which you can see in the top right of the camera. They're sort of dark purple. They're pretty good at blending into the rock. There is a lot to see in this little tiny area, and kayaking is a really great way to gain access to this very biodiverse, colorful, dynamic environment. So you really kind of have to keep your eyes peeled. There's a little sea star in that crack, and a lot of people will call sea stars starfish. I'm not sure exactly how that started, but they are not fish. So if you want to be really accurate, you should start calling them sea stars instead of starfish, because they aren't fish at all. Jennifer asked, can anyone kayak in this area? Yeah, this is an area that is open for people to kayak. It's definitely important to have maybe some kayaking experience, maybe take a lesson or go on a guided tour first so you understand kind of the conditions of this area. Our ocean is very cold up here on the North Coast, and our conditions are pretty dynamic, so it's important to know how to stay safe while you enjoy this environment. But yeah, absolutely, if you have the opportunity, come check out Trinidad Bay by Kayak. You can also see on this rock some very small little barnacles, all those little white dots there are barnacles. I would say the water is probably in the mid 50s Fahrenheit, and the air is pretty nice today actually, so it's not too cold. It's a little windy though. Does anybody have any questions for me or Michelle or for Brants while we hang out in Trinidad Bay? Feel free to type them in. Here's a good view of our bull kelp again. It's not uncommon to see species of rockfish hanging out in the canopy. So if you're playing, a game of hide and seek, for example, and you're trying to hide from predators, which animals are always trying to do in the natural world, if you had to pick between a big open soccer field and a forest, I'm guessing you would all pick the forest. So that's basically the same thing that our smaller marine animals are doing, and even our marine mammals like sea lions and seals, hiding in the kelp canopy away from their predators, because there's lots of places to hide behind. Let's see. Anything to add, Michelle?
Man, I mean, there's really so much more that we could talk about, and hopefully we'll have more programs like this in the future. But I would just say for now, I really, really recommend coming out to Trinidad or anywhere in this area where there's a rocky shoreline, like all of these rocks around us, and checking them out and spending some time to observe what critters use those rocks, because those rocks, just like the kelp forest, are a habitat for so many things. So all of these invertebrates, the sea stars, the crabs that Angie was showing you, as well as pinnipeds, so harbor seals and sea lions using the rocks too, and seabirds using the rocks. So spending some time to watch the rocks is really, really fun and rewarding. There's so much more than you'll see at first.
Absolutely. Some great places to come walk on the beach are Trinidad State Beach, which I pointed out at the beginning of our programs, just kind of a stone's throw from where we are right now. And Palmer's Point at Patrick's Point State Park is one of my favorite places to go tide pooling. So if you're looking for a place to do that on the North Coast, just look up your local tide charts. It would be the Trinidad tide charts, and head on down to Palmer's Point and see what you can see. There are lots of life forms there that look a lot different than what we see normally on land. So be sure to check it out. And of course, we have lots of marine protected areas on the north coast of California, and basically from the Oregon border all the way down to Mexico, that are places that are working to protect our marine environment, so our tide pools can be full of life, as well as our kelp forests, our sandy bottoms, our rocky reefs, all of those underwater environments, even our deep sea environments are protected in California. So be sure to get out and those protected places and visit our parks. We would love to see you. Hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for tuning in. Everyone say bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.